All right, we're back with State Representative John Patterson, of course, Debbie Newcomb, also a state representative formerly, and now a council person. A couple questions that were emailed to me and called in, actually, John. The motor running law, are you aware of that? You're not supposed to turn your car on and leave the motor running.
Was it 5 minutes? I was reading something about that.
Yeah. And apparently the state is now enforcing it. It's been in law for like 17 years or something.
Right.
And I tried to tell the people that called this in, I go, John wasn't even there when this happened. You were still teaching school.
That's right.
But apparently some people out there are upset because you can't go up and warm your car up. And I've done that here. You know, I do that. Any thoughts on, have they discussed that with you at all?
No. The reason that I was aware of that, I was looking over some, believe it or not, injection well legislation, a mega bill. And in that was a clause for some of these larger trucks, and think of all the trucks that wells and extraction wells bring, reminding them that they have a 5-minute period for idling, and that's it. So that brought to my attention. I didn't realize that it was being enforced with private individuals.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's no discussion in Columbus about changing that.
I think the reasoning is, John, for like if you pull up to Orlando Brothers Golden Dawn and leave your car running while you run in, you're leaving yourself open for a theft, obviously. Or maybe you have a kid in there and you don't want to do that. So I think that's what they're looking at. But I did get that question.
And you would never lock your car with the engine running, would you?
No.
You've never done
that, have you? My wife did last year. But there's a question about the automatic.
I remote start my car.
Yeah.
But I would think on private property, on your own property.
You think they'd leave you alone?
Yeah.
Morning, you're on the air.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Mr. Patterson, I see you're not alone today. Or I hear you're not alone today. That's one thing.
He's on the radio.
Are you ever planning on coming on the radio being alone?
Well, he would have been alone today, but I asked Debbie to stay.
Oh, okay. Hey, Mr. Patterson, when you were a teacher in high school, you belonged to the union, teachers union?
Yes, I did.
And you had investments, the union had investments in different companies and that? You know, probably big name companies, right?
No, the union did not.
They invested the money with money managers and all that.
You're talking about a voluntary retirement system that teachers could choose to belong to.
Yeah, but the union themselves still invested money into companies.
No,
right?
no. I was a member of Jefferson Area Teachers Association, and we were doing good to get just our union dues from our members. There was nothing beyond that.
Nothing beyond that.
No, sir.
Well, when the big collapse happened, a few years ago, the teachers union were complaining because they lost a lot of money and everything.
The retirement fund. You're talking about the state teachers retirement system, STRS.
Yeah.
Now that is true. That's wholly different from the union.
Well, okay.
All teachers pay into that by state law. Yeah. And the local boards pay into that by state law, and that is what teachers have as opposed to Social Security.
Okay, well, you probably get a good retirement now from the union.
Not from the union, from the state teachers.
From the retirement fund.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Now, to get them good retirement funds, the companies that they're investing in and everything all have to be doing good. So, to make their investors happy, the companies move, across seas or down to Mexico or Honduras.
Yes.
Now, I'm looking at this opine that you had in the Star Beacon on Saturday, January 18th, and you're blaming the governor, or the current Republican governor, on the economy doing bad. Well, like Sherrod Brown said, since 2000. We have lost 60,000 plants, manufacturing plants. Can you understand what that means?
Yes.
I mean, that's a lot of plants. what was it, like 12 million people were out of a job? Now, if I remember right, Strickland was in there when all this was happening, right? But in your opine, you're blaming the governor for, for doing a poor job. Well, look what he had to work with. I ain't a Republican. I don't really care about John, or whatever his name is.
Kasich, Governor Kasich, yes.
Yeah, Governor Kasich. But to me, it sounds, well, first of all, who signed NAFTA? Do you remember who signed NAFTA?
That goes back to the early 90s, yes.
Do you remember who signed it?
It was the Bush administration.
Well, you're wrong there, son. You're a history teacher?
Who was it then?
It was Bill Clinton.
Oh,
Well,
It was Bill Clinton
yes, you're
that
absolutely
signed that NAFTA.
Yes, it was moving through the pipeline during the Bush administration, and Clinton signed it.
And Clinton signed it.
Right.
So how can, you guys are all happy to vote, to jump on the bandwagon, to blame the Republicans, but then you got a president that signs a NAFTA that we probably lost half of them 60,000 jobs to Mexico.
And you realize Sherrod Brown opposes NAFTA. He felt it was a bad deal.
No, probably, yeah, but probably back then he probably didn't,
Because of
They change your mind so much, who knows?
He wasn't there then anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sherrod Brown wasn't even there, yeah.
Right.
To think about it, yeah. But it just gets me, you guys don't want to keep raising taxes, for everything, but when it came to the jobs, Americans are to blame for this whole deal. Me, I'm even to blame, because I'm still buying Honduras underwear. When I could just throw them out and not buy them, but you need them. But, I just can't, I keep reading this opine that you wrote, and you guys want to blame the Republicans when a lot of it was the Democrats. The Democrats ain't trying to stop anything. When they sign these, I mean, they're hopping on board too.
Well,
so
if you look
what
at...
do you do? I mean, what's the Americans supposed to do? You guys keep wanting to raise the taxes for fire and school and everything, and and we got $10 an hour jobs out here. You don't buy a house with $10 an hour.
I was reporting facts that were substantiated in the various media outlets and think tanks. But what I really wanted to do, and if you go to the second half of that particular article, you'll see what I envision for our economy and our section of the state. I mean, we have to revise the middle class, and you're absolutely correct. And we have to invest in our schools and our local governments, because that's what business is looking for, to not only it attracts them, but it retains them. And that's an investment in the future.
What is it? What's the yearly income?
I didn't hear the first word.
The yearly income for middle class, what is it nowadays? Anything above 40,000?
Oh, I don't think it's that high. I don't know off the top of my head.
Was anything under
I think it's 30.
30 something.
Yeah?
But it depends, essentially.
Debbie thinks
Yeah,
it might
I
be
thought it was
42.
40. I could be wrong. I'd have to look. I have those demographics somewhere.
But that's
one thing. How much does a state rep get paid?
$60,500.
You get paid by the week or the month?
No, by the month.
By the month, huh?
Oh, I never knew that.
Well, that don't sound like a bad job at all, does it?
Drive to Columbus.
Well,
All right. That's all I want to know. Maybe I can ruffle some feathers.
No, thanks for calling. I appreciate that.
Do you have to pay for your drive down there?
No, we are paid for the drive, but I do have to pay for my lodging. I do have to pay for my meals. And by the time you add that up, it's quite a chunk of money.
Because I remember
And it's only one, I think you only get one trip a week to Columbus.
That's
so if you
right.
have to come back and forth, they only pay you for one
Pay you
trip.
for one.
And that's happened occasionally. I know it probably happened to John too, where you got to come back and forth more than one time. So, but lodging is expensive in Columbus, and that's that's part of it.
Part of
They
the
don't
deal.
pay, and we are the furthest away probably from
Oh, yeah.
most
Yeah, I don't like the drive to Columbus, to believe, you know.
No.
It's not a bad drive. It's just
It's
a boring
long.
drive.
True.
It's a long drive.
Well, and it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
There are other things that we could be doing. Now, thank goodness for cell phones because you can catch up on calls. But
Right.
meeting time, I mean, essentially every time down and back, you're losing a day of work.
Right.
3.5 and 3.5
Yeah.
Mhm.
So.
hours. So
Now, John, you appeared at the city council the other night.
that's correct.
Getting calls this morning. Hi, you're on the air.
Yes. I want to know what you think of the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I don't think Americans need that. The NAFTA and TAFTA took jobs away, and this is going to take them away too.
I understand that. But you would want to talk to Congressman Joyce about that. That is a federal issue.
Okay, how do we stop this? Who do we call to say we don't want it?
Congressman Joyce's office.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm glad, you know, they're responding because they know you're here and that you can answer some of these questions.
I blew the NAFTA question though,
Well,
didn't I? Off the top of my
I
head.
didn't hear the sign part. I just, you know,
I was thinking it was moving through.
It was yeah. So.
I got to tell you about this off the air. I'll get back to you. in a second.
Okay.
Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, John.
Hello.
I know there's a bill, a House bill, I believe, I think it's 148, that would ban Class 2 injection wells.
Yes.
And I know you said there's not much support for it, but I'm hoping you will ask the counties that you represent to support this bill to ban injection wells. Mansfield has just made an ordinance that they are supporting this bill, and other cities are. And I'm hoping you'll do the same to ask our area to do that.
And we can do that. And the Monroe Falls case is going to be the centerpiece in all of this. As that case goes, so will our ability to fight it or abide by it.
Well, when is this bill, you have to work, I think, on the bill before that comes about, because I had looked up and it said that oral arguments aren't until the end of February, which would mean that the case could run so much longer. As you know,
Right.
since it's in the Supreme Court, cases here run long.
Here's what the game plan is, and Debbie can check me out if I'm not doing my homework here. But the Monroe Falls case is challenging the constitutionality of HB 248, which was passed in 2004, which essentially gave sole power to permit wells to the ODNR. And the Monroe Falls is challenging that particular bill. The bill that you refer to, 148, was introduced this session. In fact, one of your good friends in these three houses on that.
Okay.
But for that to take effect, it is going to have a committee hearing. It's going to then have to be passed out of committee, passed by the House, moved over to the Senate, the same process repeated. And I can tell you this, even though that bill was introduced, it's not going to have a hearing. It's a non-starter. One hearing and it will be done. It's not had a hearing so far.
Yeah.
But it's not going to go anywhere, and it's not going to gain any traction. And I know it's not what you want to hear, but we can fight it. The court case is going to determine it. The best thing we can do is to try and regulate those injection wells as best as possible. And I have been working on legislation to do just that, and we were close to introducing it. It's a very, very complicated process. But one of the components of that legislation is to require a local hearing on any new injection well. Our people have the right and ought to be heard by the ODNR. As it stands, the head of the ODNR has not responded to the Counties, please, for a hearing on the Windsor well, let alone the Conneaut well. Right now we have 15 operating injection wells in the county, and those two are on the drawing board, and there's been no reaction from ODNR. They don't even have to have a hearing if they choose not to.
Right.
Well, I think though, if we get more people in the state of Ohio to say, since the representatives are representing the people, that if the people don't want it, then it would have more chance. And if these cities vote to do that, to ban them.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a couple more questions?
One more, real quick.
Okay. On the east side, we have these these wells. I was wondering if Debbie could tell us, are they producing right now, or have they been capped right now?
I'd have to
And
check. You talking gas wells, or what?
the wells that Conneaut City has
Oh,
on the
this
east
one's the
side.
city have. That I don't know. I'd have to
What's
check with
gas
Mr.
well?
Eggleston.
I know that sometimes they cap them and wait for, and I understood that wells right now, some of them are being capped, so they wait for more money. And I was just wondering, are we making a profit on the east side right now of those wells?
I'd have to check with Mr. Eggleston. That hasn't come up in our conversations yet.
Oh, well, maybe they could tell tonight at City Council for us.
Okay. All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Judy. All right, John, specifically, the injection well that we've been talking here, you appeared in City Council here, was it last week or
Yes,
2 weeks.
2 weeks
Two
ago.
weeks ago.
Somebody called in and thought, or emailed, thought that you were siding with the state, and I go, I don't believe so. He was just telling the truth, not that we wanted to hear, but in this particular issue, the gas well or the injection well that we have coming in possibly out here, there's nothing we can do about it.
No, and that's the reality of the situation. And that's what my job is, to tell people what the reality is.
Right.
I can't sugarcoat
Right.
what is, and let's go beyond that. You have to understand the oil and gas lobby is very powerful in Columbus, and they have given enormous amounts of money, not to my campaign, but to others.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I was reading your paper just outside there. The economic fact of life in Carroll County and some of those, it has brought unemployment down. So here's the balance that we all face, and here's what it's one of these classic pieces of tension. On one hand, I bet you drove this morning to the studio, didn't you? So you use gas, and I bet you heat with natural gas.
Yep.
We all have that need. So on one hand, there is a market for gas and oil and plastic products, and I get that. And since 1940, well, from 48 to 2012, we imported more oil and gas byproducts than we exported. Since this has come on board, we've actually become a major gas exporter. Now, what's that have to do with anything? It frees us from the problems of the Middle East and other areas of the world. It's an international issue. So my point is, on one hand, there is a need for gas. We can all agree on that. The other side of the coin is there's a need for preservation. This planet is very fragile. So somewhere in between, there's got to be a balance between our need for survival and our need for preservation of our resources. And that's where the legislation I'm proposing to regulate and monitor these wells to make them as safe as possible plays into this picture.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily what people want to hear, but if we can allow at least a local hearing, if we can make sure, here's some of the components of that bill, if we can monitor those wells with transponders so we know what pressure they're being pumped into, if ODNR inspects them more often, if we have tracer elements, the chemicals in the well so we know if they leach out, where they're coming from, which well. And there are a few other requirements too. I want to do groundwater testing before a well is initiated, and then as the process continues, before and during, so that we can catch any of those leakage. There's no 100% foolproof system. On the other hand, we have natural resources that we all need. So
I know.
we have to be realistic.
Yeah, yeah. Good morning, you're on the air.
Morning, Pat. I hate to keep calling back. This is my third time, but I wanted to say something to John. And maybe you could have city officials involved in monitoring the wells. In other words, trained city officials so that the city can be more informed on what's going on in these wells when they report back to council or whatever. So that way, I mean, I know you're trying to improve regulation and so forth, but the city's sitting out there, like right now, they call the ODNR and they're not getting any response. The county called ODNR and they're not getting any response. But if the city could be involved, in other words, the state gets so much money from these wells.
Yes.
And that money could be used to pay for a person to work in the city, that works for the city, to inform them, of what's going on at this wellhead. So then that way, maybe there's a little bit better response to the city, so they're more informed on what's going on in these wells.
All right, that's an excellent idea.
And that's my only comment on that. I really believe that, and I told Debbie this, I think the wells are pretty safe. I'm not a sponsor or advocate of brine injection wells, but I do believe what they're doing is pretty safe. So that's the end of that. I did call you once before about snowmobiles.
Yes, and I'm working on that, and I have your number. I won't share that on the air.
Okay, the only reason I know the state has their laws and the police have to enforce them, and I mean, I'm not faulting the police or anything like that, but I mean, I would just like to see something moved, because like in Michigan, you go to New York, all these states use that for money to bring into their local economies.
Right.
Yep.
And I really would like to see something happen in the state of Ohio, because we're trying to become business friendly, and tourism, as Debbie knows, I'm very much involved with. I would like to see something happen on that. So that's all I got to say, but I just thought of that idea about the brine wells. That way it would help cities be more responsive and more knowledgeable what's going on. Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. I find it hard to believe that the city or the state won't return phone calls, the ONDR.
Or even a letter.
Or even a letter. I mean,
Nothing.
They're taxpayer driven. I mean, they above.
That's a highly charged subject. I just, I think, when I was there, we had a public relations, we had a liaison that would help us.
Right.
I don't see that happening now. So, it's just a matter of, like he said, I think things are safer than some of the stuff you see on the internet. It happened in Texas and those other states. They didn't have these regulations that we have. What John's bill is going to do is going even a step further. I like the idea of testing the groundwater before they're even talking about a permit.
And seismic testing,
And seismic
too.
Seismic, yeah, very
Which
good
is
point.
already in place with SB 315. We came a long way in the fall of 2012 when SB 315 was passed. Prior to that, there were many of us calling for a moratorium until those practices were in place. Well, then it is safer, and we haven't had the problem. Now, the incident in Youngstown was due to bad management. And the seismic testing wasn't there, and there's a whole host of issues with that.
Right. Before I let you go, hi, you're on the air.
Yes, I was wondering why Mr. Barnett does not drill any injection wells in the city he lives in. And so when I was wondering, I called Cortland, Ohio, where he is from, and I got the water department. And they said that if they were going to drill an injection well in Cortland, there would be great opposition because their city water comes from wells. Also, in answer to what they were talking about having an inspector in Pontiac, the ODNR can say, oh, a well is not doing well, this is not meeting the standards. But the ODNR has no regulation powers, and I was told this by Mr. Adgate of the ODNR. He's on the committee that decides on the wells. It has to go through court, either the Attorney General in the state of Ohio or the prosecutor in Jefferson. So you can talk about saying that there's a well that has a problem, but you're going to have a hard time getting anyone to do anything about it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
John, before I let you go, anything going on in Columbus that we haven't discussed?
The Lyme legislation I've been working on is getting ready. I mean, it came back from LSC, and there was a glaring omission that had to be. We had to send it back, and they have been overwhelmed with opiate addiction bills.
Yes.
I mean, there are like 13 of those, and I served on that committee this summer, and they are piecemeal working their way through the House. So, point of the matter is, the health people who write the legislation have just been inundated. So, we should be ready to drop that legislation pretty quick here once it gets back. But quick word on the opiate legislation. We do have a major problem, not only in this corner of the state, but statewide. And it was tragic. There was a bill introduced, well, not introduced, it was passed last week regarding unborn children addicted to heroin.
Yes.
And how, after they are born, they actually have to be taken through the steps to wean them off from that dependency. And this bill is going to require hospitals or wherever they may be in that process, to report that information to the state, so we can start to get a handle on the number of cases and how those things work out in the future. It's kind of tragic to think that young babies would be
It's amazing.
already addicted, but that's just part of the...
We had a gal on the other day from UH, I believe it was. There is a wellness group out there that helps opiate, specifically situations, and unfortunately they don't take you unless you have insurance. So you have the people out there that don't have the money and are probably struggling and really living almost a homeless life that won't get treated. But you're right. I didn't realize it was as bad as she said.
Yeah.
You know, it's bad out there.
It is, and opiates are very. I mean, it's
Addictive.
virtually
Very
impossible.
Very
addictive.
addictive.
You're talking about lifestyle
Yeah.
changes too, if you're able to get off the immediate need.
Yeah, yeah. We'll take one more phone call. Hi, you're on the air.
Yes, this is for Debbie.
Okay.
I was wondering what you think about street light fee exemption.
Street light fee exemption.
Oh, yes. That was referred to my utilities committee for review. You know, it's interesting that back in, I think it was 1987 when I first ran for office, Shirley Warren was the auditor, and she had proposed at that time a street lighting assessment fee. And it's really a community program to help pay First Energy for the existing street lights, but also to replace, repair, and expand. That was the goal in '87, and I think that's where we need to get to. I don't think I don't think that half pay and half don't pay, because we all use the street lights. You know, they're not your personal light, it's a street light. And, you know, for the areas that we need to improve for safety, we need to look at those too. And I just think as a community, we all need to pay the same, our fair share, because we all use the roads that the street lights are on.
I don't come in town after dark. The street light I have is 2 miles from my house, except for the one I put up myself and
Right.
paid for. And it...
And I always had my own too, so.
So,
But for the program to work and expand, and I think everybody needs to be treated the same way, so.
well, fine, then put me a street light out here and I'll pay for it.
That's, again, about a community plan that we all have what's best for the whole city. I lived on Furnace Road. I had my own light in my yard, and I paid myself because I chose to. But, you know, it's just, if the people are sharing the burden, they need to share it together.
Well, could you, but back when the city took over Lakeview, they promised paved roads, water, sewer. I have none of that. So if we're going to treat everybody fairly, I expect that to get done out here.
And a lot of those improvements we made on the east side, people paid for their water, their sewer assessments. People paid to have their roads paved and were assessed. You know, it's a group. We're one team, and unfortunately, Connie, it's a mix of rural and urban areas. And to grow, there's certain things we have to accomplish. So I just don't think it's fair for one to pay and not everybody. So.
Well, I don't think.
But we'll discuss it in utilities and see how it goes.
I don't think it's fair that you got paved roads and you got water and sewers, and I don't have any.
But again, those paved roads that were put in, and I'm going back to when my parents paid to have Madison Street paved, they were assessed to pay for those roads. So they paid it on their taxes for 20 some years. The same with water and sewer way back when. So I'm sure we've tried to expand water and sewer in different places in the city, and people don't want to pay for it.
Hey,
so.
You know, a few years ago, they had the pipe and everything within a mile of my house, and they was going to run it down through here. And then the city decided, nah, we ain't going to do that. We'll take the pipe someplace else.
Oh, that's interesting. Didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
So you got to pay for something I'm not getting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. All right, well, John, Debbie, thank you for coming in this morning on this cold, bitterly cold Monday morning. Sounds like things are working. Sounds like both you guys are busy. But I got a couple messages for you that I'll give you off the air. We'll take a break, and thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
Both of you.